If you're new in town or just new to this whole podcast thing, you're tuning in to Lore by Night, the podcast that discusses all things vampiric with no fear of breaching the Masquerade. In this episode, we continue to unravel the mysteries behind the origins, motives and cultures of the 9 major vampiric bloodlines in the world of darkness. This episode will focus on the winged creatures of blood and stone, the Gargoyles. Colin, what a mess have you gotten yourself into this time?
I did what you asked, Orlok. I beat up those nasty anarchs for you, but they had a nasty flamethrower and...
Yes, I can see things obviously heated up. In any case, did you find it? Did you find what you were looking for? More importantly, did you get what I was looking for?
Yes, I did. That brouhaha was delicious.
Good, but don't go saying things like that too loudly. We don't want unwanted attention now, do we? But any case, about the item I asked you to collect for me?
Yeah, here it is.
Thank you, Colin, thank you. Now, go and clean yourself up. Go and have something to eat.
But I just ate.
I know you have, Colin, I know, but do you really want the taste of blue jar lingering in your mouth? Surely there's a rat's nest nearby or something that you could use to wash out the taste of riffraff?
Okay.
How long were you standing there, neonate? There's no need to look so startled. I am far too old and accustomed to the smells of this mansion and the sense of weak vitae to know when I am in the presence of another. So yes, you know now my true name, as well as the pseudonym I use when I am outside of my haven. You also know about the existence of gargoyles, and the one who slept in my library was not a mere prop, and yet you have turned an interesting shade of pale. I often forget you're rather new to all of this, and not every kindred is accustomed to seeing 8-foot-tall gorilla stone structures with large wingspans wandering around as if it was part of the furniture. Not all gargoyles are as tame as Colin to look at, though. Most were created to be frightening to look at. Well, when Colin loses his temper, he's rather menacing, but you get what I mean, I'm sure. They are all monstrous in their visage, facing similar problems going out and about in public, lest they are seen by the kine and break the masquerade. In any case, believe this, neonate. Gargoyles do exist, and what I said previously about the origins of the gargoyles are true, but perhaps we should revisit and expand upon that information tonight. Many of the bloodlines that exist in the modern nights are surrounded in mystery, shrouded in fogs of times long gone. The origins of the gargoyles is a remarkably simpler process though, as we can pinpoint their inception to a time and a place. 1167 is the date we Cainite scholars agree with, although whilst others would say it is 1121. Anyway, the gargoyles, occasionally known as rockheads, are a bloodline created by the Tremere as their servitors. They are not a Tremere bloodline. I have spoken in great detail about the Tremere already, so you should revise the notes you took during that discussion for a fuller breakdown of the clan. But, for a quick revision, the Tremere were once known as House Tremere, a group of mages under the rule of the House of Hermes. They sought a means of increasing their power levels, believing that experimenting with vampire blood would enhance their powers. They targeted members of Clan Gangrel and Semitsi to experiment on, which is rather important for this discussion. The result was a member of House Tremere, a mage by the name of Goratrix, created a powerful elixir, turning himself and the rest of the house into vampire mages, with their magics of old being replaced by thaumaturgy, or blood sorcery, to use the modern term. These experiments would result in many unpleasant things happening all at once. One of these things was the now vampiric Tremere becoming mortal enemies of the Semitsi, who responded in the only way they could, by sending in large numbers of their Slaktar and Vodge to destroy them in their precious chantries. Where the Tremere had plenty of brains and blood magic, they lacked the physical prowess to fight back effectively. The result? To create creatures of their own to fight back, of course. and thus the Gargoyle bloodline was founded, for lack of a better term, through the Gargoyle creation ritual, a level 5 thaumaturgy ritual with the purpose of creating gargoyles from dismembered parts of other canites. It was first performed by a mage by the name of Fastania, the youngest apprentice in the Tremere Order to earn the rank of mage. It is said she struggled to make friends with the other mages, presumably because of her age gap, and would create her own friends and summon familiars. Now this will be of some importance later during our discussion, Neonate, so remember it well. Goratrix found one of these creatures and believed Vastania would be a powerful addition to his next project, which is when she would be embraced as a vampire, not by him, but another Tremere Canite, Brunovog. She was brought to Sirios, the original Tremere Chantry. She was tasked in creating something to combat the Semites' creations and anything else that stood in the way of this new clan. Many kindred were destroyed, bearing little fruit. After many botched experiments, the creation ritual was perfected. Some gargoyles know this as, "At our command it breathes," but it does very little to hide the brutality of what happens. This ritual requires several dead bodies and specially prepared materials before stitching the body back together, dumping it in a specially prepared solution, and performing some incarnation for a few months until the gargoyle is born. That is the short version, as I dread to know the full breakdown of how a gargoyle is created. The most unusual part of the breakthrough for me was giving the gargoyles the ability to fly, which comes rather naturally to them. I would have thought that would have been an add-on, a Gargoyle Mark II as it were. Anyway, all new gargoyles were created by this ritual were enacted by Fastania and Sirios, the Tremere clan's main chantry, which was located in Transylvania, before being distributed to other chantries across the world. The secret of Fastania's gargoyles was with Gangrel Vitae, in particular their Protean discipline, the ones that allows them to take the shape of wolves, bats and the like. They were perfect candidates to choose from. They kept themselves away from cities, so they were rarely missed in those long dark nights. I speak rather casually about this, you may think, but that is probably because I have grown accustomed to the constant diabolical barrage of atrocities that is the Tremere existence. I was actually terrified during this period, believe it or not, as the Tremere found that it was a specific kindred blood that completed the ritual. Well, one of 3 breeds of Canite to be precise, forming one of 3 gargoyle variants that are not so common as the typical gargoyle that I'll elaborate later on. Each variation would serve a different purpose within the Tremere Chantry. They also have different disciplines to complement said duties. Regardless of variation, all gargoyles possess the flight discipline, which doesn't need explaining. I hope. Scout gargoyles were the first gargoyles created. They were tasked to explore the surrounding areas around the chantries, reporting back to their masters about their findings. They turned to stone if heavily damaged, allowing the Tremere or other scouts to go and collect these gargoyles in addition to collecting the information the original scout couldn't return. These gargoyles have the disciplines Auspex and Obfuscate and were made using the Gangrel and Nosferatu blood types. Whether together or independently, I could not say. I would have presumed together, which would make the creation process that bit more disturbing. Then there were the Sentinel Gargoyles that were tasked to protect said chantries, in addition to any areas of interest of the Tremere. In essence, they were glorified housekeepers that were able to push back. Sentinels are mostly made up of the Nosferatu who discovered the Tremere's experiments, who passed on such experiments as weird Nosferatu variants. Colin is a stereotypical Sentinel, friendly and sociable with those I trust, but silent otherwise. He tends to struggle without a friend or an ally with him, which I suspect is a common weakness with other Sentinel Gargoyles. This might be a weird side effect from the Semitsi curse or the Nosferatu mindset of finding comfort from others of our ilk. Colin, like other Sentinel Gargoyles, has potence and fortitude, so mind your tongue when you are around him. And me. As I said already, gargoyles were created to fight against and were in vision of the Semites' creations. It is the warrior gargoyles that do most of the fighting, who are the most monstrous to look at. They were built to win, to battle, intimidate, and deliver physical punishment regardless of the concept of fear. It is because of the warriors that the Tremere survived the first decades of their inception. Concocted of Gangrel and Semitsi blood, these gargoyles have fortitude and protean at their disposal. It is rare, but some gargoyles can carry over the weaknesses of the Gangrel or Semitsi that they were previously made up of. Sometimes it is both. It is this reason why I suspect Colin looks like a gorilla, which makes me wonder how much of the world he has seen before he decided to stay with me. There is no special name or title for such gargoyles, but it was something I wanted to make you aware of anyway. Some Tremere, however, would call them mistakes. Vestania was not one of those Tremere, however. She genuinely cared for her gargoyles as much as all of her creations, more so than kindred and kine, and even more so than house and clan Tremere. Some would argue that she was too close to the gargoyles, if you get my meaning. In any case, she saw them as her children. Gargoyles do call her the mother of gargoyles for a reason, you know, and it's not just because that she created them. Unfortunately, the vast majority of Tremere did not share this kindness. Of course they didn't. The Tremere have only cared for one thing, and that is clan Tremere. Many gargoyles were beaten, tortured, and starved to break their wills. The few Dark Age gargoyles that discovered they could embrace were set on fire for violating the traditions, which I find rather ironic, given what the Tremere were doing. This would cause some gargoyles to grow angry at their scenario, especially the ones born from the embrace and not through the ritual. At first, no gargoyle openly revolted. It started out small, such as deliberately failing to do a task as well as it should have been done, or not shutting a door behind them. The Tremere would naturally become concerned about this change in their behaviour. I am told that things would come to a head when a gargoyle that Colin refers to as Rock Lord managed to escape his master when he was killed by a Tzimisce attack. Now, I don't know a lot about this gargoyle, but Colin seems to think he was the first gargoyle, whilst other records I have read disagree. Some refer to a Sir Pharaoh as the Rock Lord, an albino gargoyle who can be found on the Red List, a list of the most dangerous and wanted Canaanites in the world who is said to wield a frightening level of true length. That's Pharaoh, not all members of the Red List in general. But that isn't important here. What is that a powerful gargoyle escaped eternal servitude, flew to the depths of the Carpathians and began to breed its own brood of independent chowder that would begin to bolster the gargoyle numbers. Vestania would snap during the Anarch Revolt, outraged and heartbroken by the constant abuse towards her chowder, her babies. She decided to free the gargoyles. What made her say enough was enough? I am not sure, but Colin told me that an old friend of his said that she witnessed a scene of such brutality. She locked herself within her study for months, only to emerge with a plan to save the gargoyles. And what did this plan entail? Well, to strike at Sirios in Transylvania with her children, the heart of the gargoyle creation rituals, and allegedly the location of the Council of Severn's transformation took place, the metamorphosis from wizard to vampire. The Tremere presumed it to be a Tzimisce attack, but were dreadfully surprised to find that the gargoyles were opening the doors to let them in, joining in the fight that would outnumber the Tremeres inside. It is because of Vestania's efforts that the gargoyles are now a bloodline, in addition to the Council of Seven relocating to Vienna. That said, the aftermath of the Anarch Revolt played its part as well. The vast majority of the Gargoyle Revolt concluded in 1489, but the last instance I can locate is one in 1497, some 7 years later. As discussed during our conversation regarding the Tremere, the clan would sign the Montmartre Pact and would join the Camarilla, agreeing to stop making the gargoyles, in addition to destroying all copies of the ritual. I can tell you now, they never did this. All gargoyles that were still in captivity had to be freed, unless of course they wanted to stay, which some did, I'm told. This might sound baffling to you, as it did to me when I first gave it some thought. What I would learn is whether a gargoyle is created via ritual or embrace. Becoming a gargoyle removes all of your memories of your times as a mortal. They may experience deja vu experiences under the right circumstances, but it is rare for a gargoyle to have an entire solid memory of their past. So, all they know for certain is their life as a gargoyle, a time of torture and violence. So why would they be willing to stay? The Chantry life was all they knew, and that much freedom may overwhelm some individuals. And let me remind you that not all Tremere were monstrous towards the gargoyles, so I imagine many a Tremere and gargoyle are close companions. That being said, there are some gargoyles titled Gaslight Gargoyles, who are created by Chantries who don't care for the Montmartre Pact and still treat them as if it didn't exist. These sort of kindred are rare though. Very rare indeed. In any case, many gargoyles would migrate to the Americas and blossom throughout the rest of Europe and would become more like traditional kindred. They developed a way to learn disciplines like the rest of us, no longer needing the ancient gargoyle rituals provided to them by the Tremere that would act as disciplined duplicates. This development in the gargoyle blood may have come from the child of those aforementioned rock lord mixing with the older original gargoyles. You could say they evolved. The gargoyles of the Victorian period would also create their own discipline, vampiric. Vampiric features shapeshifting abilities similar to those of Protean, aura identification like Auspex, and the cloaking of Obfuscate, though with a greater emphasis on defense. What also sets this discipline apart is that it allows those to manipulate and become one with and pass through stone and cement, similar to how Protean can allow the kindred to become one with the earth. Those who are particularly well versed with vampiric can even learn to shrug off the might of the sun, providing they are motionless. I know this from Colin, who learned this as an out-of-clan discipline, for he was not created with it, and I believe the same could be said with the other two original types of gargoyle who embraced in this manner as well. These gargoyles would become Gargoyle Mark II, perhaps a secret planted by Fastania? Gargoyles who are embraced or created possess a particularly unique challenge in these modern nights. They have to learn to fly. They all have some knowledge of it, but require specific training to become accustomed to it. Their wings are a strange blend between ornamental and necessity. Damaging them affects flight, but their ability to fly is more mystical than the movement of said wings, although I am sure movement does help. Gargoyles tend to use a large space as a training ground, somewhere that won't act as a masquerade violation by attempting to fly. This would naturally take place in exchange for services for the prince or baron of a city. Gargoyles rarely gravitate towards the Sabbat. Outside of this, gargoyles are very much independent. Regardless of sect, gargoyles are very loyal to each other, helping each other understand and uphold the masquerade, despite their difficulties. London in particular is a large gathering point of sorts for the bloodline. What? You think the tiny gargoyles on the Natural History Museum are decorative? Ha! Well, some of them are. London homed a large gargoyle gang, did you know, called the Sixpence Pinch, who fought against the Venture and Tremere who called their home there throughout the 20th century. I occasionally hear from a handsome Dan, who is anything but handsome, about his activities in the anarch-free states in America. As with my relationship with Colin, you may think he is a servant of mine, possibly a slave. Now, many a Tremere would deem this a particular prestigious luxury, but I should let you know, I am not forcing him to stay here. He knows he can leave whenever he wishes. He stays here for this is his home. No, I have not made him think of believing that with the aid of disciplines. He is one of the few kindred I can refer to as a friend, and I hope he feels the same way towards me. Putting aside gargoyles who serve others, be it willing or otherwise, what do the three gargoyles plan to do in the modern nights? What are their goals? Well, you'd be surprised for large creatures of stone that bear horns, tusks, and large claws that can send you flying. They are kindred filled with contemplation. They understand more than any other Cainite there is more to their existence than just mere servitude, even though the deliberate fault placed within them makes them easier than most to dominate and control. This, however, does not make them weak, as they have the resilience to withstand more physical pain than most, the power to destroy buildings from the inside out, and the ability to take wing and fuck off when things get too much. They are practically immune to sunlight, so they are a real danger to anyone. It does make you wonder how they could turn the tides in these modern nights. They could easily pick apart any of the sects under the right guidance, but I'm sure if that happens, they would become slaves again, and no gargoyle wants to be a slave again. In short, they are ravenous for respect, and they will have it, even if they have to tear every Tremere apart to get it. To be kept updated, follow the Law by Night VTM Twitter and Instagram pages to find out when we will upload each episode. You can also find out by subscribing to the YouTube channel and clicking on the little bell, as you'll be immediately notified when the latest episode is live. Until next time, farewell.